After what felt like an eternity, Yeon and Jae Moon found themselves in a serene haven in the Alpha's home, craving the blissful solitude they had yearned for. Doing the deed in the darkness, giving each other service, Jae Moon felt like he had to do something very important before he was going to lose himself in the process. Trembling with fits of satisfaction and taking in the sight of the omega making his mouth work, Jae Moon quickly gulps his pills for preventive measures. As time passed, after taking the pills, Jae Moon became quiet, being busy giving service and not looking as to what Jae Moon was doing. Yeon contemplated the reason behind the Alpha's sudden silence. Yeon got curious enough to stop what he was doing and look up to find out why Jae Moon was silent. In one fell swoop, Yeon found himself from one position to another, with Jae Moon hovering over him with a dark expression and the softness from his eyes being gone. As the night deepened, Yeon's eyes began to haze over, mirroring the look of want in his Alpha's gaze. Jae Moon couldn't resist the urge to indulge a little longer. Wearing a broad smile and radiating vitality from his eyes, Jae Moon felt a pleasant weariness settling in, mingled with sweet fatigue from the shared moments. The entire encounter felt as if Yeon's head was being cradled. Holding each other close with their faces mere inches apart, Jae Moon confesses that he yearns to be a bit greedy and have Yeon exclusively for himself. At the same time, Yeon wondered whether there was anyone else who could hold such significance for him as Jae Moon. Yeon answers that Jae Moon isn't as greedy as he thinks, and that's what he likes about him. For the first time, someone who had walked into Yeon's life felt so familiar to him. Yeon confessed that Jae Moon could cherish and treasure this greed forever. They're very affectionate right now, and we love this for them, but will the sweetness last until morning? Yeon told Jae Moon to treasure his greed forever, but the greed had tired him out. Jae Moon couldn't fight his instincts as an alpha in a rut and completely forgot to control his pheromones. In theory, engaging in passionate activities between the sheets sounds appealing, but waking up right after, Jae Moon was met with the unexpected sight of Yeon adorned with various markings. Jae Moon was stunned, his eyes widening in disbelief. After freshening up and putting on clothes, Jae Moon dressed Yeon and moved his sleeping body to a clean couch. He carefully tucked him in. Taking a moment to appreciate the beauty of Yeon's face, his heart refused to calm down when he looked so closely at Yeon like this. However, a pang of guilt struck him for marking someone so precious and beautiful. In the quiet solitude of his thoughts, Jae Moon found himself reminiscing about the hushed whispers Yeon uttered when he had gently confessed his love for him. Jae Moon was in disbelief over his attempts to run away and erase Yeon from his thoughts, but here he was kneeling before him. Leaving a tender kiss on Yeon's lips, the Alpha whispered for him to have sweet dreams. In Yeon's dream, he found himself standing on a ground covered in glistening water, each droplet shining like stars. The surroundings were empty, yet not intimidating, with only him in this ethereal and sparkling space. Yeon felt this space was familiar to him and started to wonder if he was in a dream again. Realizing he was in a dream, he was ecstatic and began to think that maybe he was having one of those lucid dreams. Like a child being asked what he wanted for Christmas, he started listing all of the versions of Jae Moon he wanted to see right in front of him and hoped that it would all come to life. This man has priorities. Yeon's heart was about to burst, and his eyes were spoiled by the sight before him. Multiple versions of Jae Moon emerged, and in close proximity to his body, each figure gently traced the contours of Yeon's body. Yeon couldn't contain his excitement at the sight of all the different versions. Dressed in a formal suit, one of these variant Jae Moons stood beside a horse. One of them was Jae Moon, with dog ears and a leash, harness, and muzzle covering his mouth. Another version is dressed as a priest, and just the sight of him makes Yeon wish for a divine exorcism. Yeon has good taste, and he really knows what he wants. Something was missing, though, because Yeon wanted to see another version of Jae Moon. He requested the Alpha in a royal robe from the Joseon dynasty period. Right after saying his wish, Yeon felt a weightless sensation as he found himself gently lifted. The ground beneath him had transformed into a radiant canvas painted with the hues of both the sun and the stars. Out of nowhere, two substantially large eggs manifested, enveloped in a luminous aura and mirroring his weightless suspension. This reminded Yeon of Park Hyuk-jeos. Park Hyuk-jeos was the first king of one of Korea's 3 kingdoms, Silla. The legend of Park Hyuk-jeos describes that a light shone down from the sky during a village meeting, revealing a horse bowing, and a large egg appeared. The egg broke, and it revealed Park Hyuk-jeos. With hesitation, Yeon reached for the large eggs, held them close to his chest, and wondered if there were 2 eggs in the story. Nestling them in his arms, Yeon wondered why one of them was cold while the other one was scalding. Juggling the opposing temperatures proved difficult as he struggled to keep them securely in his grasp. Abruptly awakening, Yeon's urgent screams filled the air as he exclaimed about something being cold. From the kitchen with mittens on and a meal in his hands, Jae Moon asked Yeon if he slept well. I mean, he just yelled after waking up. That's up for debate. With a gasp, Yeon sat upright, looking around and coming to the sudden realization that he was not in his own room. He questioned if he was really talking to Jae Moon. While still behind the counter, Jae Moon bet on Yeon being hungry right after waking up, so he's glad he made spinach mushroom risotto. He made certain that the flavor of the mushrooms and spinach was as subtle as possible so that Yeon could eat it comfortably. The standards for boyfriend material are getting higher again. Jae Moon presented the beautiful plating of the risotto in front of a drooling Yeon, instructing the Omega to blow on it and take his time eating it. Noticing that this was only one plate good for one person, Yeon was concerned and asked Jae Moon if he wasn't eating. With a reassuring smile, Jae Moon said he ate a little before Yeon woke up so Yeon could eat as much as he wished. Truthfully, Jae Moon didn't have enough time to make some for himself. The things he would do for Yeon, he's so smitten. Believing Jae Moon's words, Yeon had a big grin on his face and gladly accepted the meal. Jae Moon felt fine skipping a meal as long as he was able to see Yeon happy and taken care of. With dishes done already, the couple decided to cuddle on the couch. Rubbing his head against the alpha, Yeon wrapped his arms around Jae Moon's neck and placed his legs on top of Jae Moon's leg as if he'd done it before. He asked Jae Moon if they could take the day off. While affectionately rubbing Yeon's back, Jae Moon had to break the news and sternly tell him that his rut had passed, which meant they had to return to work. Despite finding it a shame that Jae Moon still had to work, Yeon leaned in and kissed the alpha. Jae Moon simply reminded him that the previous night had been long enough for both of them. Yeon agreed, saying that the night was indeed long but chucked it up on the fact that winter was upon them. Silence washed over the two, and after a while, it dawned on them. Yeon and Jae Moon's expressions changed from shock to fear, with wide eyes and pale faces, as they realized they had forgotten to check the date. What? Is something wrong? In a panic, Jae Moon asked Yeon where he had hidden his phone so that he could get it for him. Yeon mentioned that he had the phone in his pocket. After retrieving the phone, Jae Moon apologized as he had no idea 4 days had passed. His rut had lasted so long this time, which had never happened before. Taking a good look at his phone, the Omega was not all relieved. He stated that he was in trouble and that Jae Moon must come with him back home immediately. As if a switch flipped in his head, Jae Moon changed from panic to apologetic to suddenly happy because he was excited to meet his father-in-law. How does Secretary Kang handle him all day? Yeon smiled, but beneath the smile, a trace of concern lingered for Jae Moon's well-being. Yeon said that he's not sure whether his dad would play the role of Jae Moon's future father-in-law or perhaps his personal Grim Reaper. Once at Yeon's place, Yeon was lying down on the couch and covering his face because he didn't want to look at the sight in front of him. Jae Moon was kneeling down and bowing his head deeply with anxiety etched over his face. Despite Mr. Ji Yeon's usually friendly and smiling demeanor, he was far from pleased at the moment. In fact, a daunting expression clouded his face. His intense gaze seemed to bore into Jae Moon's head. Mr. Ji Yeon sternly asked Jae Moon why his baby couldn't walk on his own 2 feet and demanded the president explain. Jae Moon apologized while switching from calling Mr. Ji Yeon by his given name to properly referring to him as his father-in-law. Mr. Ji Yeon raised his voice in a stern and furious tone, strongly expressing his disapproval of Yeon and Jae Moon's relationship. Oh no, how could Jae Moon get out of this one? In Yeon's home, the atmosphere was not looking too good. The alpha was pleading with Yeon's dad to listen to his son. Mr. Ji Yeon was having none of it and spat that Jae Moon was the only one to blame for Yeon's inability to walk. He added that he has no intentions of making the president, or Jae Moon specifically, his son-in-law. Stopping away from the conversation, Mr. Ji Yeon doesn't think any of his warnings would suffice. He marched towards a particular path while grumbling to himself about where he hid something important. Knowing this pattern, Yeon was beginning to panic even more. Yeon garnered some strength to get half of his body off the couch, grabbed Jae Moon's shoulder, and warned him to run. Seeing the distress on his lover's face, Jae Moon was beginning to wonder what Mr. Ji Yeon had planned for him. While Mr. Ji Yeon looked through his cabinets for something particular with a dark face, Jae Moon asked Yeon why he had to run. Yeon explained that if his dad brings in what he's currently looking for, Jae Moon might pass out quickly or, worse, even lose his life. Is this Mr. Ji Yeon's joke to scare off Jae Moon, or is he really going to make him do something? Jae Moon, unwavering and determined, remained on his knees, firm in his decision. He refused to back down, admitting that his love for Yeon was too strong to simply walk away. Appreciation for Yeon's multifaceted attractiveness, his cuteness, pregness, and handsomeness formed a captivating allure that held Jae Moon's heart and made him sure that he would not run away. Yeon couldn't help but agree with his sentiments. His self-confidence cannot be defeated. However, he still urged Jae Moon to run away and save himself. Hearing the couple's conversation, Mr. Ji Yeon loomed over them and asked where Jae Moon was heading. Their hearts momentarily froze, and a shared sense of fear enveloped Yeon and Jae Moon as Mr. Ji Yeon returned. They slowly turned their heads toward the direction of the older man. They observed him bearing a tray adorned with peculiar items. Gray cubes, slices of something purple, and enigmatic egg-shaped objects caught their attention. On Mr. Ji Yeon's other hand, he was carrying a blender. On his face, he was making a sinister smile. Mr. Ji Yeon ignored the couple's reaction and poured the contents into the blender, starting the blending process. The resulting mixture filled the glass, a swirl of black with a purple haze and small particles floating around. He happily handed over the mixture to Jae Moon and announced that if he drank the concoction he had made, he would allow Yeon and him to date. Mr. Ji Yeon explained that the food was a gift from a Chinese author, so Jae Moon was not allowed to spit any of the contents out. Jae Moon faced the concoction right in front of him, which poofed out a horrid smell and covered his face. Does Jae Moon love Yeon enough to go through with this? Yeon squeezed Jae Moon's hand for support, giving Jae Moon the strength he needed to consume the thick sludge, all while cringing at the dreadful taste that filled his senses, having no choice but to be a witness to this whole event. Yeon knew that drinking something like that wouldn't make him suffer for long as he didn't drink it on an empty stomach. Oh no, looks like Jae Moon's not going to feel well after this. However, even then, his stomach might still hurt. Despite being outwardly worried about Jae Moon, he couldn't help but admire how handsome the alpha was. Setting the empty glass on the table, devoid of any remnants, Jae Moon declared that he had consumed every last bit. Beads of sweat formed on his forehead as he battled the unsettling sensation in his stomach and the throbbing in his head. Despite his speech being slow, Jae Moon earnestly requested Mr. Ji Yeon's approval to date his son. Jae Moon's strength faded. His body fell on the ground, and his head eventually landed on Yeon's lap and passed out. Yeon shouted Jae Moon's name in alarm as he collapsed, leaving both him and Mr. Ji Yeon stunned. Jae Moon was transferred to a bed, his features contorted, emitting groans while his eyes were tightly shut. Yeon was hovering over the alpha and expressed concern because Jae Moon had thrown up 4 times while his dad was nervously chuckling at the back. Mr. Ji Yeon tried to pacify his son, saying that they had already given Jae Moon medicine, so he should be fine soon. He added that he was still surprised that Jae Moon drank the entire mixture all at once. It's a relief that Jae Moon has no plans for later. He knew that they would be in big trouble if Jae Moon had somewhere to be today. Just as Mr. Ji Yeon said this, Jae Moon's phone rang. The caller ID had Secretary Kang's name on it. Yeon picked up the phone and greeted the secretary. He announced that he was with the president right now, explaining that Jae Moon was currently sleeping, so if Secretary Kang had anything to relay to Jae Moon, Yeon could just tell him later. Yeon's demeanor changed. Jolting to his feet in shock, he questioned Secretary Kang for confirmation if what he heard was right. He asked if Jae Moon really did have a flight to New York scheduled in 2 hours. Secretary Kang was reassuring and told Yeon that he had packed up all of Jae Moon's stuff and urged him to accompany the president. A trip abroad with just these two? This will be fun. By boarding a flight, Yeon and Jae Moon embarked on their journey from South Korea to New York. As they landed in New York, Yeon found himself in awe, struggling to comprehend the reality of being in another country. While Yeon was busy gushing over the fact that this was real, Jae Moon held him close so that he wouldn't get lost. While walking around the terminal, they finally met Secretary Kang. The couple was very lovey-dovey as Jae Moon had a big smile on his face while Yeon was blushing and quiet at the side. Secretary Kang could already tell that the air around them would be sunshine and butterflies, and he wasn't sure if he was prepared for that. Everyone got in the car, and Secretary Kang was their designated driver today. While on the drive, Secretary Kang and Jae Moon were talking about business, mainly revolving around an exhibition and getting in touch with someone named Ji Yeon, who was another CEO. While the president and his secretary were busy, Yeon was preoccupied with looking out the window and admiring his surroundings. The magnitude of the moment enveloped him, and he found himself utterly stunned. Arriving safely at their destination, Yeon and Jae Moon got out of the car and ensured all their belongings were with them. When Jae Moon approached the driver's side window, Secretary Kang informed him that he would look for a parking spot. He bid him farewell, saying he hoped to see him again the next day. Jae Moon smiled and said goodbye to Secretary Kang before he left. The couple finally had a good look at the place they'll call their home for a bit throughout their whole stay abroad. Yeon marveled at the elegant hotel's grand scale and luxurious design from the outside. Jae Moon asked Yeon if they should check in and get some rest after their trip. Without any time wasted, the moment the couple arrived at their room, Jae Moon got comfortable and plopped down on the bed with his face buried in the fluffy pillows. Worried, Yeon asked if he was still feeling sick. I mean, it was only a few hours ago that he was groaning in agony. Yeon asked him a question, but the alpha did not respond at all. He tried to get Jae Moon's attention by calling out his name, but when he leaned in closer, it appeared that Jae Moon had fallen asleep. Despite having dozed off on the flight to New York, Yeon was persistently drowsy. This prompted him to consider the appeal of giving in to sleep, especially when he recalled how his day had been. As time passed, night came, the lights were off, and the couple was asleep on the large bed. Suddenly, Yeon woke up feeling really hungry. He decided to grab something to eat. Yeon dressed up quickly and got ready to leave. His stomach was growling. He wondered if the airport food wasn't enough. Maybe you should get that checked. I wonder what that could mean. Yeon. Thankfully, there was a burger place on the way to their hotel, and Yeon might have an idea where it could be. Being considerate, Yeon didn't bother to wake up Jae Moon since he was sleeping soundly, so that meant he had to come back soon since the alpha wouldn't be hovering over him. New York was cold and dim at that time of the day, but Yeon safely made it to the burger place he had been setting his eyes on for a while. With a broad smile on his face, he was glad that the place was still open. He looked at the wide menu and commented aloud that he wasn't sure what to order. A tall stranger crept behind Yeon and recommended the salmon salad burger and the deluxe cheeseburgers. Being oblivious and without looking behind him, Yeon thought about that answer and uttered to get the same food items aloud. Then, it finally dawned on him that he should be alone at the moment and shouldn't be expecting anyone to actually answer his ramblings. Yeon slowly turned around and didn't recognize the face he was looking at. Behind him was a man with a darker complexion. His eyes were green. His brown hair was a bit wavy, and he looked put together. This prompted him to ask the stranger for his name. Who is this person? In any case, I hope he doesn't bite. Yeon, please be extra careful. In the burger place, Yeon had asked the stranger for his name. This stranger might not be familiar to Yeon, but this person sure knows him. With a wide smile, the stranger confirmed if the person he was talking to was Yeon because he had heard much about him from Jae Moon. He introduced himself as Choi Jung-myung, a gallery CEO and an acquaintance of Jae Moon. Jung-myung, are you naughty or nice? Yeon tried to jog his memory if he had ever heard Jae Moon talk about him before and vaguely recalled their car ride to their hotel. The Omega was pleasantly surprised to know that Jae Moon was constantly surrounded by handsome people. Handsome, but are the green flags like Jae Moon? Yeon smiled back, confirmed to Jung-myung that he had heard of him, and asked if Jung-myung was excited about the exhibition in a few hours. Jung-myung said he was ecstatic but didn't add anything further since he told Yeon that his burgers were ready. Yeon almost forgot about them, gave a genuine apology to the employee behind the counter, and took the bag in his hand. Stepping out of the store, the two of them started walking in a certain direction. Yeon vented that he came to New York with Jae Moon so suddenly, and he's been alone the entire time. With a laugh, Jung-myung said that Jae Moon had put a lot of effort into preparing the Three Jade Sides exhibition, so it was a given that he had little time to spare. Yeon realized that he didn't quite understand what the name of the exhibition meant and curiously asked Jung-myung about the Three Jade Sides. Jung-myung gladly explained that the name refers to the three brilliantly gleaming colors of the jade marble beads. He went on to say that even seeing something like that once would make Yeon want to keep them. Hearing this, Yeon was getting curious as to what these jade marble beads look like. The two men found themselves within the premises of the hotel, and seamlessly continuing their conversation, Jung-myung joined Yeon in the same elevator with the metallic doors sliding shut in front of them. He kindly offered to escort Yeon to the exhibit, assuring him that he would inform Jae Moon in advance. I'm beginning to see a pattern here that I'm not sure I like. Yeon asked if it was really okay for Jung-myung to do this for him and expressed his gratitude for Jung-myung's gracious offer to accompany him to New York on his first visit. Jung-myung told him not to worry and offered his business card to get his contacts, promising to be waiting in the hall the next morning. As Yeon stepped out on his floor, he thanked Jung-myung and waved goodbye to the new friend he made. The metallic elevator doors were closing since Jung-myung was now riding the elevator down, yet he made sure to part with a smile and a farewell to Yeon through the narrowing gap. Once the doors closed in front of him and he was all alone in the elevator, Myung's smile disappeared. His demeanor immediately shifted to be serious and irritated. He had to crack his jaws a bit because all that smiling wasn't natural for him. Leaning against the other end of the elevator, Myung had concluded that everything must have been going smoothly for a certain someone. He already knew how to pull the rug from under their feet and wondered if this was really as easy as the universe was laying down on him. Either way, he was ready for things to get fun. What is he up to? What's his deal? As the new day unfolded, Jae Moon started the morning by brewing coffee and preparing a hearty breakfast for Yeon. Meanwhile, the Omega was sound asleep in the bedroom. Patiently, Jae Moon waited by Yeon's side, kneeling beside the bed without attempting to rouse him, allowing the tranquility of the moment to linger. At last, Yeon woke up, squinting his eyes. Jae Moon asked if the Omega had eaten hamburgers last night because he saw the bags as he caressed and admired Yeon's face. Still half asleep, Yeon confirmed it all. Jae Moon kindly asked Yeon if he wanted to go out next time, he should wake him up so he could accompany him. Yeon promised he would. When Jae Moon moved from the floor and on top of Yeon, the Omega didn't hesitate to caress the alpha's face. Yeon asked what time it was and if Jae Moon was heading out soon. Jae Moon replied that it was still in the middle of the morning, and he'd head out before 11. To make the most out of their time there, he asked Yeon if he wanted to watch a movie before he goes. Yeon was in complete bliss hearing this from his lover. He agreed to the arrangement but asked to freshen himself up first. After a quick wash, Yeon went to Jae Moon's side, and the couple shared a kiss. Their lovely moment together made Jae Moon regret leaving Yeon later, to the point that he contemplated staying in their room all day. Yeon felt the need to remind him of how much he worked hard to reach this point. They decided to settle down in bed, with Yeon latching onto Jae Moon like a koala. Jae Moon curiously asked Yeon if he had met up with Myung last night because he got a call from him earlier. Yeon just remembered what happened last night during his fits of hunger. He looked up at Jae Moon and said that they met by chance. The Omega didn't forget to mention that Myung was going to be his escort for the day and asked Jae Moon if he could go with the other CEO. Jae Moon was all smiles and found nothing out of order. He knew he could trust Myung with his lover and told Yeon that he could do whatever he wanted. Jae Moon even said he could give Yeon his card so he could buy whatever he wanted. Yeon couldn't be any happier, so he gave Jae Moon a big hug and snuggled next to him as his form of thank you. Later, the pair had changed into clothes suitable for wearing outdoors. Jae Moon asked Yeon whether he was ready to go now, and Yeon happily replied with the short answer that he was. Jae Moon couldn't help but find almost everything that Yeon says or does utterable. Getting all giddy, he patted Yeon's squishy face and mimicked Yeon's way of confirming. Yeon only repeated the same word, and the couple couldn't help but laugh. When the couple arrived at the lobby, they shortly made it to the exit, where they were greeted by Myung. Have fun and be safe, Yeon. The two arrived at their destination in no time. Myung guided Yeon to the Three Jade Sides exhibit, his finger tracing the highlighted path on the pamphlet to pinpoint the main attraction. As they approached the display, the ethereal glow of the jade captured Yeon's attention. The jade possessed a mesmerizing allure, with its surface adorned by a captivating spectrum of colors reminiscent of a delicate rainbow. It emitted a radiant and self-sustaining brilliance. He stood transfixed, his eyes widening in sheer awe. It makes you wonder what he sees in that jade. Opting for a luxurious dining experience, the duo chose to dine in an upscale restaurant offering a picturesque view of New York's shimmering city lights. They were having Italian food in New York, which Yeon found a bit funny. This prompted him to ask Yeon if he liked his food. Yeon happily replied that he found the food delicious, especially when he had been craving pasta and pizza. He didn't forget to express his gratitude towards Myung for escorting him today. Yeon really liked the exhibit and got a good look around New York until he saw all he had to see of the big city. Literally enjoying the food, Yeon immediately munched down on his dish as if he were in a race against time. Myung gently reminded him that the food wasn't going away anytime soon, so he should slow down. Yeon replied that he knew he should be slowing down, but he couldn't help but find the food really good. Just as he said this, he suddenly dropped his utensils. He felt like something was trying to get out his throat. Oh no, is there something wrong with the food? Yeon kindly told Myung that he had to get to the bathroom for a moment and hurriedly excused himself from their table. As Yeon hurried his steps towards the bathroom with his hands covering his mouth, Myung just stared at the Omega's back. He uttered for Yeon to be careful and got curious as to why Yeon left so quickly. He quietly observed that with Yeon's condition, he wouldn't be back anytime soon. With Yeon's absence, Myung took advantage of the chance to grab Yeon's phone that was left on the table and install an app. As he tinkered with the device, he threw a suspicious glance around his general vicinity just to make sure no one was looking. Jae Moon had installed an app called DRG on Yeon's phone. It had a unique logo, a white dog with black accents and a bone underneath its face. Jae Moon looked through the app's options and chose to hide it, making it hard for Yeon to even know it was there in the first place. With confirmation that the app had been hidden from Yeon's phone, Jae Moon casually placed the device back where it was initially placed. What does Jae Moon want from Yeon? Yeon just got back from the bathroom and was very apologetic for taking a bit longer than intended, holding a hot beverage in his hand. Jae Moon had guessed that Yeon wasn't feeling too good, so he asked the servers to wrap the food they had and then proceeded to order dessert for them. Yeon was still a bit embarrassed, so he said a cup of tea would be enough for him. Finally soothing his body with a cup of hot beverage, Yeon vented that he found it really hard to adjust to the 12-hour difference in time. Trying to show concern, Jae Moon remembered Yeon telling him that this was his first time in New York, so he called Jae Moon and added that it would be best to have the Omega rest today. Yeon found all of this touching and thanked Jae Moon from the bottom of his heart. Jae Moon smiled and told Yeon that it's more beneficial to rest when he's feeling under the weather. He additionally mentioned that Jae Moon was going to arrive anytime soon. Speaking of the alpha, Jae Moon just entered the restaurant's glass doors wearing a suit and a serious expression. His demeanor changed when he was right in front of Yeon. With genuine worry in his tone, he stood protectively by his loved one, expressing worry about Yeon's well-being. He added that he had to come as soon as he could after learning that Yeon wasn't feeling too good today. He asked Yeon to go home with him and rest there. Yeon found this all endearing and couldn't say no to that. Yeon got up from his seat while Jae Moon decided to guide him outside before saying goodbye to Jae Moon. Once the couple walked away and out of earshot, Jae Moon's face now revealed a deceptive duality and malevolent glint in his eyes. He cynically remarked to Jae Moon to be wary of what lies ahead. Jae Moon really needs new friends, but before that, how would the attack materialize, and most importantly, could the pair protect themselves? Yeon and Jae Moon arrived safely at their hotel, with Jae Moon displaying gentlemanly courtesy by opening the door for his lover. After a day filled with activity, Yeon wearily sank onto their bed. His face clenched with a tired expression as he regretted that it was their last day in New York already. While putting away his stuff, Jae Moon asked Yeon if he wanted to wash together. As if a switch flipped in his head, Yeon sat up, perked up, and happily agreed. Yeon's like a cat hearing the tuna can open. A steamy bath was prepared for the couple. The air was filled with warmth as an ambient glow accentuated the mist rising from the water and the lit-up candles. The bath had a breathtaking view of the city lights unfolding beyond the window. In the bath, Jae Moon hugged Yeon from the back while Yeon traced the alpha's arm. The alpha apologized to Yeon, acknowledging his own moments of selfishness. While admiring Yeon's whole presence, he admitted to acting out of pure impulse, like whisking Yeon away to New York because the thought of being apart for even a moment was unbearable. Smiling, Yeon shared that despite facing difficulties, he found joy in every precious moment. Holding Yeon's face close to his while caressing his lover's neck, Jae Moon conveyed his appreciation for Yeon's brutal honesty. He admired the fact that Yeon is straightforward and doesn't gloss over his words. Yeon delicately cautions Jae Moon about the dangers of falling in love with him. However, Jae Moon meets Yeon's warning with a confident yet tender assurance that he has already made up his mind and adds that he's willing to risk falling for him. With a strong sense of certainty, Jae Moon asked Yeon if he could mark Yeon, making it a physical manifestation of their love for each other on Yeon's body. Marking means tying the souls of an alpha and an omnivet together and an absolute expression of love and ownership. Being a mated pair is eternal and irreversible. Gripped by sudden panic at what Jae Moon said, Yeon instinctively nudged Jae Moon away and created a bit of distance between them. He implored for Jae Moon not to joke about things like that. He reminded Jae Moon that marking is exclusively for marriage and that he could not reverse it. They can never be so sure about the future, so he doesn't want to make that kind of commitment at the moment. In a firm tone, Jae Moon asserted that his statements were sincere and not intended as a joke. He softly says that he understands Yeon's reaction. It is true that someone in their right mind would never say something like that. On the other hand, Jae Moon is trying to show in this case that he is in the right state of mind because he trusts Yeon. He sought to convey to Yeon that ever since the day he first encountered him in the subway station, Yeon had become a persisting presence in his thoughts. Each night, within the realm of his dreams, Jae Moon found himself holding Yeon close, repeatedly questioning his name and pondering the things Yeon liked. Jae Moon genuinely wanted Yeon to know about his dreams, which were all about him and how difficult it is to find someone like that. Ever since that time when Jae Moon distanced himself from the Omega and Yeon came to him first, Jae Moon had already decided that Yeon was the one he wanted to cherish and commit to. He bared his soul to Yeon and professed a profound and unwavering love. Even if Yeon couldn't see it, he pointed out that this was a love so strong that it would persist even though his heart had been crushed into shards. Even if everyone around him betrays him, or if Yeon himself crosses Jae Moon, that one small portion of Jae Moon's heart will never cease loving Yeon. Jae Moon pressed a tender kiss to Yeon's hand, urging him to trust him. Tearing up, Yeon placed a kiss on Jae Moon's chest in response, confessing that meeting him was a choice he would cherish without any regrets. When Yeon asked about his importance to Jae Moon's life, Jae Moon promised that the night would last as long as Yeon desired. Jae Moon vowed to continuously profess his feelings to Yeon until the morning light graced them. Once more, Jae Moon declared his love to Yeon, and in the intensity of the moment, tears welled in Yeon's eyes. Rubbing his eyes, Yeon asked Jae Moon if he would mark him now, but the latter said that tonight wasn't the right time to do that. Jae Moon is always attentive to Yeon's feelings, never aggressive, and always understanding. Upon hearing that, Yeon chuckled and remarked that he genuinely couldn't fathom the depths of Jae Moon's heart. Jae Moon returned the smile and asserted that his heart was truly transparent, likening it to the pristine clarity of first-class water. Yeon joked that it was so transparent that he practically could not see it. The couple chuckled as they proceeded to enjoy the moment. Jae Moon made jokes about Yeon for constantly switching his demeanor. Being adorable, Yeon asked Jae Moon why he was making fun of him. In response, Jae Moon could only laugh. Using their remaining time abroad, Yeon and Jae Moon got hooked by a drama that involved a man in a suit and a blonde woman engaged in a touching conversation about whether they would forget each other, but one of them replied that they wouldn't do something like that. Very fitting to their story, a heart will never forget. The couple sat upright on the bed, yet Yeon found solace in resting his head on Jae Moon's chest while Jae Moon, in a tender gesture, encircled his arm around Yeon's shoulder. Yeon looked up and asked Jae Moon if he ever lost his memories like the person in the drama. Taking it lightly, Jae Moon said he lost his memory once when he was around 21. Oh, I think that Jerk Youngmin mentioned something about that. Jae Moon went on to say that when he was 21, his father first showed him the 3 jade sides. Only his family knows this. But the jade was a family heirloom. Yeon couldn't fathom it upon learning that Jae Moon was incorporating his family heirloom into the exhibition and considers Jae Moon to be out of the ordinary. Jae Moon happily continued that the first time he saw the 3 jade sides, he was completely bewitched by it. Without any reason, he couldn't remember what happened after that event. His father simply told him that he just suddenly passed out after hitting his head somewhere. 6 years have passed, but Jae Moon still doesn't have a clue as to what happened. Yeon expressed that that was something strange for anyone to go through. A sudden shock registering on his face, Yeon did the math in his head and couldn't fathom how Jae Moon was 21 6 years ago. This made Yeon realize that he didn't know how old Jae Moon was right now, so he had to ask. Jae Moon giggled and scratched his cheek, embarrassed that they had almost done everything, yet they were not aware of each other's age. He didn't hesitate to say his age, 27, and asked about how old Yeon was. Their whole demeanor changed as if a pang of realization had hit them when Yeon announced that he was 28. He's older. Jae Moon leaned in and gave his honest thoughts that he really was convinced that Yeon was younger than him. Jae Moon proceeded to compliment Yeon's beautiful skin and perfect hands. Meanwhile, Yeon thought Jae Moon was older than him, especially thinking about his current job position and how he looks so natural in his role. Yeon knows that the gallery opened 4 years ago, so that would make Jae Moon a CEO at 23. When Jae Moon pulled Yeon closer, their mood changed. Learning something new and profound about one another that day just deepened their love. They couldn't help but be captured by each other's gaze. Placing their foreheads together, Jae Moon says that age shouldn't matter to them because they only need love. Yeon smiled and confessed that he liked to date younger men. And after knowing that Jae Moon was younger, this changed things for him. Jae Moon immediately asked what he meant by that, changing how he called Yeon to young. Yeon giggled and told Jae Moon that he was being silly. Jae Moon gently laid down Yeon on the bed and hovered over him. Yeon looks up at his lover and caresses his face. The owner said that he suddenly got excited when Jae Moon promised that he would make the night longer for him. Worried they might only have a few hours in this room, Yeon remembered to ask Jae Moon when they had to check out. Jae Moon intends to uphold his promise, claiming that they will have enough time for their bodies to melt together. Yeon and Jae Moon are deeply in love, and their affection for each other is palpable in the way they seek solace in each other's arms. Today, Jae Moon was insistent about calling Yeon his young, and he seemed more thrilled with the endearing label than his lover. Fun fact: the Korean language has a system of honorifics that recognizes and reflects the hierarchical social status to show respect. Young is an honorific used when you're a male and you're talking to other older males. On usual nights, Jae Moon would be more intense with his touches, but lately, he felt bad because Yeon's body could only take so much. Despite not following their usual agenda while doing acts of service, Yeon called Jae Moon his honey in a moment of complete bliss. Hearing the new and sweet nickname, Jae Moon couldn't contain how happy he was and spilled his essence. Both of them couldn't believe that a single nickname would change things. Yeon could already guess that Jae Moon wasn't used to using nicknames used by couples. Jae moved an inch closer to Yeon's beautiful face, and their lips met in a tender kiss. Feeling like it was a bit too late, Yeon still asked Jae Moon if it was okay to call them that nickname and if they could talk to each other more casually. Besides honorifics, Koreans show respect to the person they talk to or about by choosing the appropriate speech level. At this level, where Yeon wants to talk to Jae Moon casually, that means their relationship is closer than that of strangers or coworkers. Jae Moon called Yeon his lover and told him to do whatever he wanted. Hearing this, Yeon got very excited and started calling Jae Moon all sorts of nicknames used by couples. With a big smile on his face, he even proposed to call Jae Moon his husband. Jae Moon felt like he was losing his mind hearing those endearments all at once. Feeling like the night was still young, Jae Moon asked his precious young if they should have another round of playing around in the sheets. Yeon never hesitated to agree to this arrangement. Jae Moon and Yeon poured out their hearts, exchanging heartfelt words that solidified their love for each other. Their declarations echoed in the quiet space. Can their long, lovely nights stay this peaceful? Always. Alone in his office, Jung Myung grappled with deep contemplations. The chance to secure an artist exclusively for his gallery slipped through his fingers. Jung Myung harbored resentment over Jae Moon's soaring success, deeming it unfair. Despite opening his gallery first, pioneering collaborative exhibits, and managing every aspect of art, Jung Myung couldn't shake the feeling that success eluded him. Why not try another approach to appeal to artists, or maybe work with Jae Moon and get help? Most importantly, Jung Myung had a particular target in mind that revolved around Jae Moon, and it involved his own family heirloom. Opening up a private room within his office secured by a passcode-protected door, Jung Myung revealed a space adorned with a whiteboard bearing a multitude of notes and pictures. Jung Myung's face remained devoid of any emotion as he surveyed the display compilation of images featuring Yeon, Jae Moon, and the three jade sides, shapes and lines intricately connected words revolving around Jae Moon's family and their fortune. The CEO took out a marker and drew around Yeon's picture. His full name, his second gender, and his relationship status with Jae Moon were listed. Jung Myung realized that Yeon might be as valuable as Jae Moon's heirloom. Jung Myung murmured a warning to Jae Moon and threatened to take away someone very precious to him. Yeon, can we just chill for a second? The world is wide enough for both of you and Jae Moon. In Jae Moon's office, the alpha was engrossed in writing something important when the sudden urge to sneeze disrupted his focus. The couple was dressed in formal suits for work today, a sharp contrast to their attire during their time in New York. With worry etched on his face, Yeon asked if he was alright since he's been having sneezing fits for a while now. Jae Moon tended his nose and reassured Yeon that he didn't feel like a cold was coming. The alpha jokingly mentioned that someone must be cursing behind his back. It's like his nose is his sixth sense. Being brutally honest, Yeon asked if there was any other person who would curse out Jae Moon besides him. Jae Moon came to a halt, and his pen remained still until the ink stained a specific spot on the paper. He turned to look at Yeon and asked if he ever cursed him out before. Yeon could already tell that the alpha was sulking. Jae Moon couldn't believe that Yeon would hate him enough to curse him out. Yeon was taken aback by the situation and had to clarify that it was not what he was worrying about. He went on to say that he just misread their circumstances and that he would never curse out Jae Moon himself. Well, that was a complete lie. His memories betray his own words as he remembers those times cussing out Jae Moon to no end. With panic and stuttering in his words, Yeon tried to explain that his words before meant something else. Jae Moon replies that he doesn't mind. He says that but pouts, turning his head away from Yeon, and masterfully employs the art of playing hard to get. Yeon was taken aback. Jae Moon was not normally like this, but here he was, showing an unexpectedly adorable side of him. Unable to stop himself from finding Jae Moon irresistibly cute, Yeon smiled warmly and apologized to the sulking alpha. Taking a glance at the Omega, Jae Moon just remembered something. He asked if Yeon had met up with Ryan before and how that went. Suddenly talking about Yeonmin, Getting a bit uncomfortable with the topic, Yeon still went ahead and said that he and Ryan ate samgyetang and then looked around at an adult toy store because Ryan asked him to go with him. Jae Moon genuinely asked why Yeon followed him there. In response, Yeon stood up and sat on Jae Moon's lap. With a hand on Jae Moon's chest and their faces inches away from each other, Yeon confessed that Ryan was talking about Jae Moon and that he followed Ryan to the store only because he was curious. Then, after that, Yeon just went home. With a reassuring smile and tender words, Yeon employed his charm to comfort and sway Jae Moon, endearing references like husband, pinching the alpha's cheeks, and all that teasing eventually broke down Jae Moon's resistance, making him succumb to Yeon's affections. Communication skills resolved a problem that would have lasted chapters. They're both green flags. Yeon had a convincing ploy. He suggested to Jae Moon that they retreat to his place since no one would be home. The idea was to share dinner together and spend the night there. Jae Moon leaned in and was tempted by the offer. He wrapped his arms around Yeon's waist and squeezed their bodies together. The alpha informed Yeon that his schedule for the day was nearly finished, suggesting he could get off early, and asked about any specific food Yeon had in mind. Yeon thought hard about the ingredients in his refrigerator back at home and came up with kimchi stew or fried rice. With a big smile on his face, Jae Moon eagerly requested fried rice. He then asked if he had a spare pair of pajamas to borrow. Yeon reciprocated the excitement, assuring him that borrowing was more than welcome. As the night descended, Jae Moon and Yeon savored a delightful home-cooked meal in the cozy comfort of Yeon's home. Eager to indulge in Yeon's fried rice, Jae Moon couldn't contain his anticipation and accidentally burned himself as the piping hot food met his impatient enthusiasm. Yeon found this very endearing and asked Jae Moon to blow his food and eat slower next time. The couple relished a delightful dinner, and as the evening unfolded, Yeon adorned pink gloves to tackle the post-meal cleanup. Jae Moon embraced him from behind, turning the mundane task into a cute display of affection. Jae Moon asked if Yeon was almost done with the dishes and expressed that he wanted to help. Yeon said not to worry about it since there are not a lot of dishes left to clean anyway. Jae Moon embraced Yeon with an even tighter grip, seeking comfort and closeness. The alpha truthfully expressed that he's been a bit blue since they haven't done any bedroom exercise since New York, which was a week ago. In the kitchen, the couple decided it was time to start exercising. Jae Moon and Yeon relished the intimate moments, reveling in the physical closeness and the mutual pursuit of a particular goal. However, the happy times had to cease. Jae Moon and Yeon's excitement waned as they heard unsettling sounds from the other side of the house. Jae Moon questioned if he heard Yeon correctly, expressing surprise as he assumed Yeon's dad wouldn't be home that day. Yeon also found it weird, but they couldn't just stand there in pure shock. Their hearts raced in unison, urgency etched on their faces as the need to change and find a hiding spot intensified. "Move! Don't let him catch you with your pants down." Frantically searching, Yeon spotted a suitable hiding spot for both of them and hurriedly guided Jae Moon to follow his lead. Mr. Ji Yeon arrived home and noticed the altered state of the sink, immediately recognizing it as a sign of Yeon's unannounced visit. Jae Moon was stunned in place and had cold sweat all over his body. He just realized that he left his shoes in the shoe rack. Yeon couldn't believe this was happening to them but praised Jae Moon for doing that nonetheless. With growing suspicion, Mr. Ji Yeon decided to explore the house in search of his son. Unfortunately, one of the first doors he opened, the couple were just right behind it. In the shadow behind the door and holding their breaths, Jae Moon pressed against the walls and closed his eyes while Yeon covered most of his face with his hands. Both were waiting in anticipation if they would get caught or not. They were lucky to have ended up in that particular spot behind the door because Mr. Ji Yeon couldn't see them at first glance. Seems like they found themselves in quite a jam. Will they come out of this safe, or will they both get the blender of punishment? In Yeon's home, the couple was still in the dark. Their hearts raced, eyes shut tight, as they strained to catch every sound emanating from Mr. Ji Yeon on the other side of the door. Mr. Ji Yeon glanced over his shoulder, abandoning the search in the dim room. He really wanted to greet his son but assumed Yeon must have dashed off to the convenience store. He sounds sad. "Yeon, you better make it up to him after this." As Mr. Ji Yeon swung the door closed and the latch clicked into place, the couple exhaled as if a century had passed. Relieved beyond measure, Jae Moon rested his head on Yeon's shoulder while Yeon leaned back, finding support in Jae Moon. Their hands entwined and both shared a gentle squeeze. The couple held each other close in a tender and affectionate hug. Jae Moon was positive that he would be drinking that same shake again had they been caught. He had already thought of the worst punishment like pouring the shake over the kimchi fried rice Yeon had made him. Yeon patted his back and told him that his dad must have forgotten something and left immediately after getting it. Even after a successful escape from the sheikh, Jae Moon wasn't too happy, though. He pulled back and had a sulking face. He whined that he was a bit disappointed that he couldn't finish the deed with Yeon and emphasized that it's been a week since they did it. Yeon caressed his face and reminded him that they would be meeting Jae Moon's parents tomorrow, so either way, they still needed to get to bed early. That is nerve-wracking. How was Jae Moon chill about this? Jae Moon was still whining, but he eventually agreed with Yeon's sentiment. Yeon didn't give in to his sulking this time and called him cute. The morning sun streamed through the window, casting a warm glow on the couple's faces. Yeon was sleeping soundly on top of Jae Moon's chest, and the alpha's hand was in Yeon's hair. They woke up from the echoing sound of Yeon's alarm clock on the bedside table. Yeon turned off the alarm and happily woke up Jae Moon. As they readied themselves for the day, they shared moments of brushing their teeth and getting dressed together before finally heading out. Driving down the road, Yeon nervously held Jae Moon's hand as he drove. Yeon was worried and asked Jae Moon if his family was strict. Jae Moon pondered Yeon's question and assured him that his family wasn't strict at all. He then asked Yeon why he felt nervous. K-dramas don't make it look easy. Yeon nervously laughed and confirmed if his family already knew about their relationship. He was wondering what he would do if they turned out to be strict. Jae Moon gave Yeon a reassuring smile and promised that meeting his family wouldn't be the same as those dramas seen on TV. The couple were fast approaching Jae Moon's home, so he asked if Yeon still felt the need to be nervous. Yeon panicked after realizing they were close already. Jae Moon laughed at his lover's reaction and announced that his house should be visible soon enough. Yeon was surprised to learn that Jae Moon's family lived in a grand skyscraper, a sight that stood tall and impressive against the cityscape. He couldn't help but gaze around in awe at the luxurious surroundings of Jae Moon's home. His eyes sparkled with wonder as he took in every detail, but his eyes landed on the big, grandiose living room where Jae Moon's parents sat on the long couch. Jae Moon's parents gave the couple a very warm welcome. They were both smiling, complimenting Jae Moon on bringing in such a nice person and asking Yeon if he was the Ji Yeon Jae Moon had told them about. Yeon was in complete shock meeting Jae Moon's parents for the first time. He found the alpha's mom to be exuding elegance, and you could see through her eyes that she had the same jaguar aura as Jae Moon. Despite his shocked state, Yeon didn't forget to confirm that that was his name. Yeon sat across from Jae Moon's parents and offered them a tiny present. He was anxious in his brain, worried the gift would not look worthwhile. However, on the contrary, Jae Moon's mother smiled a lot and expressed that she adores Yeon and has been wondering when her son and Yeon will marry. She's so supportive. Ma'am, are you open to adopting new kids? Jae Moon and Yeon were surprised when Jae Moon's mom inquired about their plans for marriage. This was still something they needed to talk about, so Jae Moon decided to change the topic and asked his parents if he could show Yeon around his room. Arriving in Jae Moon's childhood bedroom, Yeon couldn't help but talk about how Jae Moon's mom held herself like the way she sat and spoke. Jae Moon couldn't deny that but added that lately, she's still a wildcat with no teeth. Jae Moon encouraged Yeon to look around his room even if there was not much to see. Yeon couldn't help but be fascinated because there was so much to see. While savoring every inch of Jae Moon's room, Yeon was exploring Jae Moon's closet when he noticed his old school uniform. Not hiding his intentions, Yeon gave Jae Moon his old uniform and asked him to put it on. Jae Moon was a bit shy, holding up his old clothes again. While tugging the alpha's sleeve, Yeon playfully and persistently encourages Jae Moon to wear the uniform. Jae Moon can't help but find Yeon cute. He's very convincing. Jae Moon, he's driving a hard bargain here. With his shoulders slumped and hands on either side of Yeon's shoulders, Jae Moon gave up and said that he put it on. Upon hearing that, Yeon's smile blossomed like flowers in full bloom. As time passed, Yeon found himself lying down on Jae Moon's bed and wondered when Jae Moon was going to get out. Right on cue, Jae Moon requested that Yeon turn his attention towards him. Yeon compelled himself to sit up in bed, scanned the room, and focused his gaze on Jae Moon. His eyes couldn't believe that what he was seeing could be real. Yeon could already imagine how hardworking Jae Moon must have been as a student. Witnessing Jae Moon in glasses and disheveled hair, yet impeccably neat in his school uniform, Yeon's heart skipped a beat. As Jae Moon asks him if the attire suits him well, Yeon agrees, convinced that school uniforms were only made for Jae Moon. Can we have an A with these two as students? Maybe in another life? Jae Moon leaned against Yeon and confessed that he was nervous that Yeon wasn't going to like it because he really looked like a student. Yeon moved closer, closing the gap for a kiss. Acknowledging Yeon's motives, Jae Moon reciprocated and guided him down with a gradual touch. "This is nice, but are the doors locked?" Suddenly, Yeon pushed Jae Moon and yelled that they shouldn't be doing things like this because he was a teacher and Jae Moon was a student. A multitude of thoughts flooded Jae Moon's mind at lightning speed as he attempted to decipher what was transpiring in Yeon's thoughts. A wave of blissful astonishment swept over Jae Moon as he finally realized what Yeon wanted from him and decided to play along. They're about to start a special class, and let's hope it proceeds without any disruptions. In Jae Moon's childhood bedroom, the couple was hard at work having an intimate play. Jae Moon and Yeon took satisfaction in the feeling of being so close to each other. However, stunned and wide-eyed, Yeon and Jae Moon froze as they heard someone outside the door. On the other side, Jae Moon's mom asked if they had finished inspecting the room and if they were interested in dinner. Curious as to why these hadn't gone out yet or even responded, she gently opened the door and tentatively asked if she could enter. Receiving no protest at all, she decided to enter quietly. The room was clean, and the lights were turned off. Taking only a few steps closer to Jae Moon's bed, she discovered the two sound asleep. She promised herself she'd try to make them up later, and shortly left them alone. Hearing this, Yeon and Jae Moon fearlessly embraced the risks again and decided to continue with their play underneath the sheets. Oh my god, these two almost got caught twice, and they're still this motivated. However, this didn't last too long. They were able to finish with Jae Moon looking rejuvenated, with a radiant glow on his face. He was so energized that he grabbed his old glasses and asked the Omega if lessons were already over. On the other hand, Yeon wore a glossy-eyed expression as if lost in his thoughts and emotions. Looking at Jae Moon felt like getting flashed by a phone in the middle of the night. Without hesitation, Yeon barfed right in front of the alpha. Jae Moon's eyes widened in surprise and worry, realizing the severity of the situation. His first reaction was a loud exclamation, asking Yeon what was wrong. During the morning, the couple rushed to the hospital. Their faces were etched with worry and uncertainty, but the doctor they were seeing was very reassuring. The doctor explained that everything was fine, and he just wanted to ask if Yeon had been spending some time doing excessive exercises lately. Yeon wondered if his body was in a bit of a shock because they hadn't really done the deed for a week already, and here they were, picking up the pace. The Onva truthfully stated to the doctor that he started exercising again after not doing anything for a week. The doctor was relieved by Yeon's answer, explaining that Yeon's body reacted a certain way because he overdid it. Jae Moon asked the doctor how Yeon managed to get through a week with a strict schedule. The doctor said that situation occurs when Yeon has nothing inside their stomach. Getting a bit of context from the couple's replies, the doctor realized they needed more clarity in the situation. He then announced that Yeon had been pregnant for 2 weeks. Their eyes widened in astonishment, and a profound silence settled in the room as the reality of Yeon's pregnancy sank in. They're going to be parents. In the hospital, Jae Moon and Yeon stare at each other in shock upon hearing the news. Once inside Jae Moon's car in the parking lot, Yeon expresses his joy about the pregnancy and shares a dream with Jae Moon involving the 2 eggs being his pregnancy dream. His eyes crinkled with merriment as laughter spilled freely because Yeon couldn't believe that Yeon would give him twins. Embarrassment colored Jae Moon's cheeks as he listened to Yeon's playful teasing. He whined for Yeon to stop already. Even though he was a bit shy, the alpha expressed that he wanted their kids to look as cute and beautiful as Yeon. Yeon was really loving the flattery and said that he wanted their babies to be tall and handsome, just like their alpha dad. Yeon says all of this but doesn't forget to tease how gifted Jae Moon was for giving him more than one baby all in one ice cream spill. Sulking, Jae Moon declares that he doesn't want to talk to Yeon right now. With hearts in his eyes, Yeon playfully jabbed at Jae Moon with his nickname. Have mercy on your hubby, Yeon. His heart could only take so much cuteness from you. After the pregnancy announcement, Mr. Ji Yeon met Jae Moon's parents, and the encounter unfolded smoothly. The atmosphere was pleasant, and everyone got along well. The couple started looking for furniture and baby clothes. They were already picking out toys that the kids could play with. They were still able to walk around and do things together until the pain started kicking in. Yeon would go home feeling like his whole body had gone through so much in one day. Without changing his clothes, Yeon looked for the bed and lay there. This didn't soothe his body, though, as he continued to groan in pain. When his phone started ringing on the bedside table, Yeon picked it up to see who was trying to reach him. It was his future husband, Jae Moon. The alpha asked Yeon if he got home safe. This placed a big smile on Yeon's face and enough energy to reply to Jae Moon that he had gotten home safely and that he was going to change clothes and go to bed. Just as he sent that adorable message to Jae Moon, someone else tried to contact Yeon. The message contained a question asking if Yeon was planning to sleep now. Seeing the message, it didn't look like anyone Yeon knew. He was already pissed off that this wasn't the first message he's been receiving. Yeon didn't hesitate to block this person from his applications, but even if he blocks this number, there are still countless attempts that keep popping in, making Yeon's phone continuously buzz. The continuous sending of the same messages was already irking him. Physically distancing himself from his phone doesn't help. If he leaves it all alone, the phone will just continue to buzz in new messages. One attempt is more desperate than the other. Yeon received messages demanding him to reply. He had already blocked a lot of numbers that his block list could spill over his phone. He thought to himself that as long as he didn't reply, the sender would tire himself out and stop. Instead, the stalking got worse over time. Yeon began to receive packages with visible leaks or stains, suggesting that something inside was leaking a red substance. This is not just a prank. Yeon should not be dealing with this alone, especially when he's pregnant. The following morning, Yeon took this opportunity to come clean to Jae Moon in their company building, pinching his own nose out of frustration. Jae Moon was seething with anger upon discovering that Yeon had a stalker who had been terrorizing him for a while. With his head bowed, Yeon responded only with nods, his hands tightly clasped together. Unable to meet Jae Moon's gaze, Jae Moon asked Yeon if Mr. Ji Yeon knew about this problem. Yeon answers no and explains that his dad has been in China since 2 days ago, visiting his acquaintances. Expressing his concern, Jae Moon asked Yeon why he hadn't informed him until now. Yeon still avoided Jae Moon's eyes, saying that he felt guilt in doing so as Jae Moon was busily arranging things for the wedding at their home, and Yeon hesitated to disturb him. Jae Moon isn't angry or disappointed, but he genuinely wants to be stern enough to remind Yeon that he's the one that Yeon has to depend on. Thinking back, Jae Moon wondered how Yeon handled any of this all alone. The alpha took slow, deliberate steps towards Yeon, his fingers delicately tracing the contours of Yeon's face. As he lifted his gaze, the fatigue in Yeon's eyes became even more pronounced. Jae Moon promises that there will be no regrets or bad feelings between them from now on, especially since they are planning to marry and are expecting children. Yeon's suffering will be his as well. Yeon rose to his feet, enveloped by Jae Moon in a warm embrace. With the weight of suppressed emotions being let out, Yeon clung to Jae Moon, tears escaping from his closed eyes. Jae Moon pulled Yeon into a tighter embrace and reassured him that he could always find solace in his arms, allowing himself to cry whenever he needed. The weight Yeon had silently carried began to lift, and he expressed appreciation to Jae Moon for his support, regretting not confiding in him sooner. Jae Moon tenderly ran his fingers through the back of Yeon's head and gently touched Yeon's stomach. He expressed that having 4 people together is a lot better than 3. The couple sat on the couch again, with Yeon leaning against Jae Moon and Jae Moon, not letting even an inch get between them. The alpha suggested that they should rest in his place after work and promised to inform Mr. Ji Yeon about this arrangement. Jae Moon could only imagine the pain Yeon had to go through all alone. He praised Yeon for trying to think of him and attempting to solve it by himself, but reminded him that he didn't need to do that anymore because he was there for Yeon now. I hope this can offer some comfort to Yeon. I'm curious about the identity of the stalker. Either way, this stalker should sleep with one eye open. 2 months have gone by since Yeon shared the issue about the stalker, yet Jae Moon hasn't encountered any problems firsthand. The couple enjoyed some alone time together on Jae Moon's couch. Yeon was sitting upright while Jae Moon was on his stomach, his hand near Yeon's belly and his legs swinging up in the air. They were fixated on Yeon's stomach. It doesn't look like there's a baby bump yet, even though he was having twins. Yeon said that if one of their babies is a girl, then he wants her to be as good-looking as Jae Moon. Jae Moon replied that if one of their babies is a boy, then he wants him to be as cute as Yeon. Jae Moon was captivated by Yeon's stomach. He chuckled while gently touching Yeon's belly, pondering whether it would be bigger by the time of their wedding. Yeon didn't find a problem with that, but wondered if his stomach would show if he was going to wear his suit. Jae Moon giggled and stated that if it was obvious, he would absolutely love it. Jae Moon just loving every phase Yeon goes through is true love. Wait, they're soulmates. Of course, it makes sense. Yeon held onto Jae Moon's cheek, finding Jae Moon's statement silly, but this didn't stop Jae Moon from smiling wide. He asked the Omega if he wasn't having any morning sickness as of the moment, then maybe Yeon had a dish in mind that he wanted to eat. Looking at Jae Moon with hearty eyes, Yeon answered that he only wants his future husband's lips. Welcoming his lover's request, Jae Moon allowed Yeon to satisfy his craving for kisses. Suddenly, Yeon felt a sharp pain on his side. He had a feeling that it had something to do with the twins. Yeon got up from his seat and started comforting his stomach. He concludes that the twins demand tangerines. Jae Moon felt Yeon's stomach and looked up at his lover. He said that he would go get tangerines now, so all Yeon had to do was sit here and wait for him. Jae Moon dressed himself and earnestly cautioned Yeon against opening the door for anyone but him. When Jae Moon left, Yeon was celebrating while feeling the babies in his stomach, thinking about how their daddy would get them tangerines. He remains oblivious to the tall, hovering figure standing right behind him, concealed within the shadows. Then, Yeon felt a shiver down his spine. He sensed a presence behind him, but Yeon couldn't pivot in time to identify the looming threat. Inevitably, he succumbed. He couldn't shield himself or the children. He was forced to inhale a substance that could only result in him getting knocked out. In a matter of time, drowsiness enveloped him, and his entire field of vision plunged into darkness. Someone, please save Yeon and the kids. Jae Moon entered the passcode to his place and got inside successfully. He was carrying a bag full of tangerines and couldn't wait to share it with his love. While taking off his coat and searching around the room for Yeon, he mentioned that he had gone to the store across the street because the place where they usually bought goods was closed. He was confused when he didn't hear a response to his story and turned to look at the place where he left his lover. Examining the couch and the scattered arrangement of blankets and pillows, Jae Moon felt the need to call for Yeon again. Someone is going to get instant karma in the form of Jae Moon. Go find your man.